Jenny always woke up tired. The kind of tired one can't get rid of, despite a hot shower or a warm cocoa. Every morning was another endless loop of feeling exhaustion that didn't belong to her. It started worrying her when she had to be hospitalized one afternoon after her maid discovered her convulsing on the floor. Her doctors checked her health tracker and asked her about her environment and stress, as the tracker showed a spike in her heart rate from 2 a.m. to 3 a.m. Jenny had noticed it before. Her activity wasn't out anywhere, but in her own home. But she brushed it under the rug, considering it a glitch. After 4 types of pills and agreement to weekly therapy, she was let go. Jenny was a freelance writer. It had taken her a lot of time and hard work to make the figures she did today. But it also came with its cons. Lack of socialization or any time outside in the nature. Her life was a loop. Laptop, tea, silence, and deadlines. Her therapist called it isolation fatigue. Jenny called it survival. Months went by and Jenny had grown numb to the exhaustion. Despite repeated suggestions of her therapist to take a break from her writing, she ignored, like a toddler ignoring food in front of the TV. Her loop was disrupted when she started experiencing blackouts. In fact, these blackouts were filled with dreams, repeated ones, where she would wake up in a corridor, cramped and narrow, the walls shining in golden shimmer. The carpet was red with dark stains on it. It stretched endlessly. But in the dream, Jenny would walk exactly 15 steps and turn to her right to the black door. On it, a number engraved, 207 in silver. The lights always buzzed, and she'd always wake up right before opening the door. Her heart always racing with time. One dry morning, her main door was wide open. She had no memory since the day before yesterday, as if her mind was stuck on autopilot. That's when she decided to book a break. Change of air might help, her therapist's word ringing in her ears. She immediately packed a bag. Only the things that made the cut were a few PJs and baggy shirts, charger, a book to read, and a bottle of water. Out of habit, she put on the tracker, locked the door, and took the afternoon bus to the next city. On her way, she booked a hotel for twice the price. At check-in stood a young girl. She was dressed sharp, vibrant with energy, eager to talk. At least that's what her big, bold eyes indicated.
Hello, Miss Jenny. 4 nights in a row. Welcome, welcome. Same room?
Jenny's mind was baffled with so many words and the type of question. What does she mean by back? Jenny held her tongue when the receptionist said,
Here's your key. Have a great stay.
The brass keychain attached to the big key commented on the age of the hotel. She strode up the staircase into the corridor of the first floor. The same red carpet, the golden walls, the black doors. Her footfalls echoed in the empty corridor. At the end of the corridor hung a cross. On the right was the black door, with 207 written in silver. What is happening? She whispered, puzzled. She inserted the key into the keyhole, her fingers shaking and struggling. She opened the door and it cried its symphony despite her haste. Jenny slammed it shut, leaning hard against the door and falling limp. Her pulse raced. She didn't know what she was afraid of, only that the fear had already arrived. The view of the mountains from the extended balcony, her book, and a hot tea finally brought in the comfort and rest she was desperately looking for. Her eyes didn't squint at the natural brightness, but rather soaked it. As the sky grew purple, a sense of ease took over. For the first time in a while, she slept like a baby. At least, that's what she thought. Until the next morning when the tiredness hovered over her. Her health tracker still showed activity between 2 to 3 a.m. She had walked over 10,000 steps. What was odd was the tracker showed her location back home and not the hotel. She placed the tracker in her bag. The glitch was driving her nuts. She walked down to the reception to ask for a suitable place for breakfast. It was the same girl from yesterday.
Oh, Miss Jenny, you stayed the night? Slept well?
I doubt that.
Oh, you usually are up before 3. The cameras caught you waving at them. And you leave me notes of little compliments. I love them. Thank you so much.
Wait. I don't understand. I'm up at 3?
Well, not today, but other times, sure.
When have I been here before?
Are you trying to scare me? Is this part of the plot of your book? Huh?
What book?
Oh, Miss Jenny, you're so funny. I love this part of the weekends where you always show up with something for me to chuckle on.
The receptionist couldn't sense the chill spreading across Jenny's veins. Jenny rushed upstairs, palpitating, sweat dripping from her forehead as she shoved all her belongings into her bag. As soon as she touched the handle, a sizzle added to the sounds of the room. Jenny's hand burned red. She screamed in agony as she fell to the floor, crawling backwards. The wallpaper of the room had grown dull. The flicker of the light echoed. Jenny covered her ears and shut her eyes, her head throbbing to the blaring sounds. When Jenny opened her eyes, she was panting. She was on the floor. That was familiar. Everything was quiet, except for some crickets singing with the night. It was her room. Her fingers lingered over her bed, her laptop, her coffee mug on the bedside table. Her head still ached, but seemed to be fading. She gulped down some water. Tomorrow morning, she planned on going and talking to her therapist about the possibility of sleepwalking, as only that seemed to be a logical explanation. That night, she set up her phone camera to record herself to sleep. She made herself chamomile tea and wore the coziest nightsuit. She wanted to forget everything about the hotel. With dim lights, she swiftly drifted into sleep. In a haze, the sound around her all muffled, she opened her eyes. Everything around her was bright white. This seemed to be the opposite of the dark nothingness the elders talk about. The only thing that existed was Jenny and her bed. She rose slowly, put on her slippers, and covered herself with a blanket. It was cold, even for a place so bright. She blinked slowly, part of her aware that she is dreaming. Her steps were nice and slow. On the 15th step was a door, white and clean. On it, engraved in golden, was the number 207. Her eyes welled up in tears. She couldn't scream or cry, as if someone stole her voice. Suffocation rose inside Jenny. She felt trapped, not because of what surrounded her, but for the stitches she felt on her lips. She couldn't open it. Muffled cries trapped inside those stitches. Her ears stood alert when she heard a knock on the door. They were rhythmic, coming in successions of 3. She took a few steps back and then closer, tilting her head left to right. The knocks grew louder and louder. She searched for the handle, or a knob, or anything to open the door with. But nothing. Suddenly she was back to the same silence and fear she'd first experienced in the corridor of the hotel. She pressed her left ear on the door, her eyes still tearing. Her right hand slowly rose, forming a fist. She heard someone unlock the door slowly. She gasped. She had no idea why she knocked. Panic rose, and she could taste her own bile. The door swung open. Inside was the same room, with the dull wallpaper waiting for her. She collapsed at the doorframe, slapped herself just to escape the dream. Light footfalls hurried behind her. The air smelled pungent, closer to a burning plastic. She gagged. Her periphery caught a constant glimpse of someone running behind her. It was mocking her. Her cries, her laugh, everything. Jenny had no courage to look back. With her eyes pressed shut, she quickly crawled into the room and shut the door behind her. She touched her mouth. The stitches were gone. Still, she chose darkness over sight and gave a loud cry.
Why? Why is this happening to me?
She was heaving and sobbing, wondering when it all went wrong. What did she do to face such a pain? She had no will to open her eyes, not ready for what sight awaits. That's when she heard the birds chirping. A mix of roses and lavender flooded the air. She slowly opened her eyes. It was the balcony from the hotel that she loved so much on the first day. She ambled to it, not sure what grotesque experience awaits her. The mountains covered in green sheets, embraced with white mist. Jenny's lips parted into a smile, yet the unease still persisted. She sat on the chair staring into the abyss. It felt like days had passed. There it was, her next agonizing experience. Only now she had made her peace with it, fully aware there's no escape. She strode to the door, and it clicked open. Nothing and no one was outside. She peeked to her left and then to her right. The cross at the end of the corridor hung upside down, and at the end of the corner stood a lady, her hair falling to the length of her foot, her eyes milky green, her teeth yellow, though something about her felt familiar. A bone-cracking sound echoed in the hall when Jenny noticed that the creature started crawling and leaping on the walls in the hall. The creature laughed and said,
Oh, Miss Jenny, you're so funny.
You see, kids, Jenny's phone recording was checked after she was reported missing. Exactly at 2:14 a.m., she was seen pacing around the room, her hand performing gestures mid-air. She was laughing, crying, and whispering until 3 a.m. That's when she disappeared, out of the frame, into thin air. Some say Jenny's soul is still stuck in the never-ending loop of the hotel room, the corridor, and her room, and that she is tired till date.